Grimsby and Bolton Abbey Steam Railway is nestled between Skipton and Harrogate in the picturesque Yorkshire Dales. It hosts and homes a multitude of engines, ranging from steam engines to Fowler diesels. But few engines can boast that it's a one of a kind. But deep within the carriage shed, hidden away at the back, is one engine that can boast that very trait with confidence. Looking at it, you wouldn't think of it as an ordinary engine. In fact, it looks more like a carriage. But within the beast of steam, the engine and its brother was a class above the rest. Electric engines were not new in the 1900s. In fact, they'd been going on for many years. Electric engines had many advantages over their steam counterparts, but to implement electric engines often included the use of either a third rail or unreliable heavy batteries. To use electric universally, it would mean that the whole network would have to be upgraded, and with so many independent rival railway businesses being forced to work together, it would be practically impossible. Vincent Raven, the Assistant Chief Medical Engineer of the North East Railway, marvelled at this new type of power. A forward-thinking man, he knew that steam would not last forever and could see the advantages electrical power could be on the line. He didn't just want to build an electric engine either. He envisioned a self-propelled coach that would be less labour-intensive as a steam or electric engine, that would not need the use of continuous power sources such as a third rail or overhead wiring. Auto coaches were not new, as some had been invented that were steam-powered, but they didn't overcome the glaring issue that it was still, in a sense, a steam engine. Around the same time as steam, the internal combustion engine was also being developed. The first engines were being developed as early as 1794. Within 100 years, Carl Benz, a German inventor and designer, used his own version of the engine to power his first ever motor car. Raven had a brainwave and set to work researching combustion engines. What the NER produced was a world first. From the outside, the two new railway vehicles looked similar to a coach. They were 53 feet long and weighed about 35 tons. It could carry 52 passengers and had a compartment for its 85 brake horsepower Napier engines. These engines would power the dynamo, which in turn would feed the power to the accumulators. The dynamo would be the beating heart, powering two electric motors mounted in the bogies of the engine, the lights, and the start-up mechanism. The dynamo would also power the electric braking system, another world first for railway design. The Napier engines did well, but they were not sufficient, and in less than a year both autocars had their engines replaced with Worsley ones. These new engines produced 92 brake horsepower and had a unique feature of the driver being able to control the engine from either end of the car. This meant no more turntables or turning around. Number 3170 and 3171 set to work, hauling holidaymakers and tourists up and down the east coast of Yorkshire between Scarborough and Filey, showing off the views and the new and up-and-coming coastal town of Ravenscar, with its brand new station where for a nominal fee you are welcome to buy a plot of land for your new summer home. In 1909 the coastal dream waned for many. The firm developing the new town went bust, with only a handful of streets and buildings built. Ravenscar would be known as the town that never was, and for a while a railway would remain in place until the 60s, but there was no need for two autocars to work the line together. The engines were moved to Selby to branch line work, hauling passengers up to and from the town, right up through the First World War. In 1923, 3170 was refitted with a new type of engine. It boasted a new 225 brake horsepower, over double than what it previously had, and had the capacity to pull a light, unpowered coach behind it for the first time in its life. It also had a new top speed of 36 miles an hour, and for the last 8 years of the engine's lives, Pre-170 worked around the Harrogate area, taking passengers without incident. The LNER, who had inherited the Autocars after the grouping, were really not too sure what to make of these new engines. Their low top speed and limited capacity were a problem, but while the Kingston steam were commonplace, the engines attracted a lot of attention. If there had been more of them, I suspect that the LNER may have invested more, but as the engines simply couldn't keep up with the passenger demands, and the investment in the engines would have been more than what they're worth, it was decided to call time on 3170 and 3171. On the 31st of May 1930, 3171 was withdrawn from service, with 3170 following 11 months later. Raven's idyllic dream of combustion engines powering mainline trains would not be realised and fully adopted until the mid-50s, 20 years after the engine's withdrawal. It's not really documented what happened to 3171. It was likely the old engine was scrapped or cut up, plundered for valuable materials for the war effort. But how 3170 survived can only be described as a miracle. The bogies and undercarriage were stripped, and the body was purchased by a local man who transported it to Kirby Moorside near Pickering, where it became a holiday home. The owner cared for the home for the next 70 years. One night in 2003, railway enthusiast and stately carriages owner Stephen Middleton was having a chance conversation and heard about the Autocar's whereabouts. Knowing that the engine was a one of a kind, Stephen didn't hesitate to buy the body and arrange for removal and storage to Emsby Steam Railway Station. Once safe, a trust was formed to raise funds and volunteers for the engine to be restored. Suitable bogies and underframes were found, and the body rested on the rails again. The engine had to be scrapped, and a new diesel engine was fitted to comply with the new regulations, and the chassis had to be modified from a milk and brake van and strengthened. Work began in 2011, with an official return to service in 2018. In addition to the Autocar, it was also partnered with an NER Auto Coach. The North York Moors Railway had a coach stored at Levisham, but hearing of the restoration, they donated the coach to the railway. It too received substantial restoration work and runs proudly behind the Autocar. The Autocar is a mainstay at the railway and runs on most Mondays and on special occasions. It has a loving home, surrounded by a host of wonderful volunteers, and is owned by a wonderful owner whose love and dedication to preserving forgotten railways has saved many unique engines. The Autocar went from an engineering marvel to a simple indoor hut, but now it's back on the rails again, with its NER original livery, and able to be enjoyed by both passengers and rail enthusiasts for generations to come. And who knows? There may be more pieces of history out there, just waiting to be discovered and put back to its original use once more.